Well. Good morning, West Ham fans. Happy Wednesday, happy hump day, happy bin day in the Button household. It's all the days, and just a couple of days away until we get a nice long bank holiday weekend, which is very nice, and I can't wait. Although we do have the extra bit of playing Southampton in the middle of that, but regardless of that, great excuse to eat a lot of chocolate, as if I need an excuse. Here with another morning musings. I'm in the office, and I was thinking on the way in. I was thinking about decisions that need to be made in the summer, and obviously a number of decisions need to be made in terms of the first team. In essence, kind of like 8, 10 decisions need to be made. 5 out of contract. We've got 2 loans in, and we've got 3 loan players out. Again, Zuma, and Freddie Potts, I'm going to talk about today as well. But there's those decisions need to be made before we've even decided to think about who we're bringing in, really. But there's a lot of decisions need to be made in terms of the academy as well. And as you know, the academy is something that's very close to my heart. It's something which I spend a lot of time watching, because it's the lifeblood of West Ham, and it always has been. And I think as I've said quite recently, I think we're in a really healthy position when it comes to the academy, in terms of players coming through, and the conveyor belt of players, not just for the 21s, but in the 18s, and then the 16s coming into the 18s as well. So we've got a number of players out on loan or who are out of contract. Well, actually, we've only really got one player who's technically out of contract in the summer. One. Is it 2? Is Luizao out of contract as well? Not too sure, but there's definitely one who's out of contract. So what I thought we'll do is go through the loan players, and because a decision needs to be made. For me, if you're going out on loan and then coming back, and if you're going to go, all you're going to do is go straight back to the 21s. You might as well go out on loan again, or maybe move on to try and find some first team football elsewhere, or be included into the pathway. And I think at the moment, for me, there's one or two who could potentially go into the pathway, but I think, in all honesty, we've got a great bunch of players, but I don't know whether not everyone's going to make it into the West Ham first team. And as I always say, 97% of Premier League academy players never play 1 minute of Premier League football, which is absolutely mad. Right, so let's talk about. Oh, actually, I pressed the right button. There we go. Oh no, there we go. Let's talk. So Kam Swyer, he's out of contract in the summer. He's had last year, he went on loan to Crawley. He's been a mainstay in the 21s for the last couple of years. Does he? A decision has to be made in terms of whether to offer him a new deal or not. For me, I think for his career, I can't see him breaking into the first team. He's a good player. He scored a great goal the other day, great ball from Lewis Orford, but I just don't think he's got that je ne sais quoi. He'll have a very good league career, but at West Ham, I don't think so. So for me, I think I wouldn't be surprised to see him leave. And that's what's going to happen. We're going to get players. We're going to get loads of announcements over the next, going into the summer with the retained lists, and say, "Oh, this person's leaving," and the whole West Ham fan base is going to be up in uproar. Going, "Oh, I can't believe we're letting these guys go. Our academy players are lifeblood." We pick and choose who we want to give new contracts to, and not. You don't necessarily get a contract because you're a West Ham academy player. Sometimes you don't make it, and indeed, we've been through, and I've looked at, and I've spoken to you before. Very rarely do the guys get it wrong, and it might take 2, 3, 4 years for them to get it wrong, so to speak. You're looking at someone like, I don't know, Tony Martinez, maybe Devine potentially, but again, that was more not a case of we offered him stuff, but he wanted more. There's the other Devine who's at City. He's the under 18 squad. He's getting a lot of interest from like Bayern Munich and people like that. Maybe, but again, ifs, buts, and maybes. If my auntie had bollocks to be my uncle. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him being released in the summer. Now, looking at the loan players, I mean, Freddie's the I mean, to be honest, he's not an academy player anymore now. Is he 22? I think. He's now part of, he's a first teamer out on loan, which is why we talk about here in Hammer's headlines rather than the academy show. But for me, there is clearly a decision that's been made on Freddie. He's signed a long-term deal to 2029, I believe, and Potter has name-checked him in press conferences. Someone who's had a phenomenal, and he's a real success of how the loan system works. He's the poster boy for that. Wickham, great year at Wickham. Players Player of the Year, I think it was, or Fans Player of the Year, or maybe even both. And then goes to Portsmouth, and the fans love him. They want to keep him, but he's got there's bigger plans ahead for Freddie. You can see that because the club are investing in him. They've offered him a new deal. He's tied down to 2029, but also they've done like loads of video packages about him. He's the poster boy, I think, for the academy in the next couple of years. I hate labeling people the next, but sort of the next Declan Rice, so to speak, but maybe even more so because of his dad and his brother going through the academy, and obviously Stevie's still involved, and over 500 games played for the club as well. So the name Potts is synonymous with West Ham. So I think you'll see a prominent role for him in the West Ham first team squad next year. Whether that's first team starter or just being in and around the squad, he'll be an invaluable part of that squad next year, particularly with players coming and going. That's for sure. Let's talk about George Earthy. His loan spell to Bristol City has been marred by injury, really, and then when he is fit, the manager Liam Manning has decided to play other players. However, the last sort of half dozen games we've seen the George we know you've got for Bristol City. I mean, he's had 3 man of the match performances in a row. What's interesting is he has been playing on the left-hand side. They play a similar system to Graham Potter. Liam does the 3-4, sort of 3-4, and then sort of 2 and 1 or 1 and 2, depending about how they're playing. And what will be interesting to see is his trajectory next year. And I think it's all based on whether we sell Kudus, or probably when, not if we sell Kudus, and how that money's reinvested. Whether that means he comes back and goes back out on loan for another year, Bristol City are, particularly if they get promoted, may well try to get him on loan. The fans love him, and we've seen, I think, the last few games particularly, the George Earthy we think was going to go to Bristol City. He's been tenacious. He's chasing down. He's putting key passes. He's picking the ball up from midfield, driving forward as well. I think he'll come back for pre-season. I think Potter will have a look at him, and the decision will be made then. But for me, it's on the fence what to do with George next season. And again, all of this is dependent on the incomings and the goings as well. For me, if we don't sell anyone and we bring extra players in, which is not going to happen, then maybe George's position in the squad will be diminished for the time being. So a loan move again would be useful. Again, Freddie's done 2 years on loan. Maybe that is the pathway now for our academy players to get 100 games under the belt, or so and so forth. So the decision has been made on him. Callum Marshall obviously signed a new deal, an extension to his contract before he went to West Brom last season, which was a move which didn't favour anyone really, didn't help him out in terms of his trajectory. I'm going to say that word again. In terms of his pathway, Huddersfield much more successful. Fans love him. He's got double digits in terms of goals this season. Half a dozen assists as well. So I think it's about 15, 16 goal involvements in terms of total. But I don't know where there's a place for him in the squad at West Ham, which is a shame because he's a goal scorer. He's someone who scores goals. It would be not belittling, that's the wrong word, but it would be a come down if he goes out on loan at Huddersfield, comes back and then plays 21s. How's that going to favour him? So for me, someone like Callum, it's loan or bust, I think. He will score, as I said, I liken him into a Craig Bellamy type player. He will score goals wherever league he's in. Does he have that killer instinct? Does he have that clinical nature to go into a Premier League side? Will he compete with forwards that we bring in? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Will he get lost in the shuffle? I don't know either. For me, I think it's for him. It's another loan spell, but it gets to a point where you have continual loan spells. And you're thinking, well, am I ever going to get into the first team? No, I think he could potentially be used in cup games and stuff like that. But at the moment, we're going to only have a few cup games next season. I hope a lot and we'll go to the final. But in the League Cup and the FA Cup. But realistically, he would get more games if obviously we were playing in Europe, I would imagine. But yeah, I think a loan spell back out on loan would benefit him. But because now we've got a pathway now where the 18s who are filled into the 21s, the likes of Josh Ajala and people like that, they're now settled into the 21s. So by bringing Callum back into the 21s, you'd then drop Josh, and I think the club, they've got high hopes with Josh as well. So Gideon, I wouldn't be surprised if Gideon goes in the summer, potentially to Wickham. He's played a number of positions for them. He's been in and out of the side. He's played right back for them, which was a position that Lopetegui put. He played for Lopetegui during the pre-seasons in the summer, just gone. So I wouldn't be surprised if Gideon's got to the point now where it's, I think Wickham have asked about making the deal permanent, and I wouldn't be surprised for him to move on. Again, it's that position. It's like, where does he fit? And it's like a little bit Ben Johnson-esque in terms of you can play in several different positions, but you've got to nail down that one position. I mean, Ben, like for Ipswich the other day, played right of the front three and scored. But it's the same sort of thing with Gideon. And for him to have a decent career, I think I wouldn't be surprised if he's moved out, if an offer came in for him. Let's talk about PK, Patrick Kelly. Obviously, we spoke about him with Steve Lomas. Lives in the same village as the Kelly family, and obviously he's been at Doncaster this season. A first team player, majority of starts rather necessarily, or minutes rather than sort of not being included at all. He's had a few injuries as well, and midfield is such a tough position at West Ham. I think in terms of breaking in. He's technically a really good player. Physically, I think he's a little bit short for me in terms of short, but sort of he's quite short, but quite light as well for the role he plays. He plays that sort of CDM terrier role, driving the ball forward. I think you have to have a bit more bulk about it, to be honest, particularly in the Premier League. Now, I think he would end up having a great career in league football. And whether another loan spell is useful for him, I don't know. His contract doesn't run out until I think it's 27. I think we've got a few. His contract runs out in 2026. Michael Forbes, I think it's Andre Dyke and Sean Moore. So a couple of the Northern Ireland lads. I like PK. Very honest player. A very good under 21 player. Whether that step up, I don't know if it's going to happen at West Ham, in all honesty. Luizao, I think he's gone. He's currently on loan at Pogon. I don't think he's played a single game for them or a single minute yet. He's been on the bench, I think, a couple of times. I think if he wants to make a life for him and his family, if it's in Poland, it's in Poland. I think he'll go this summer. And if it is to Pogon or maybe go to Portugal or back to Brazil, he needs to find for him, not only for his football but for his family, a home. I don't think West Ham's ever been his home. He's been there for a couple of years now, and it's never really settled. He's never made a first team appearance. He's played some good games, some poor games for the under-21s, and now it's sort of stick or bust, and I think it will be bust. I think it will be twisted and moved out. And then he can start his life really. Mamadou Kante, the forgotten man, the man we signed and sent him back to Paris FC. Last few games for Paris FC, he's been getting a few minutes towards the end of the game. We're crying out for some physical CDM who can drive the ball forward. I believe this man could be it. This boy really could be it. Next year is going to be interesting to see what the club do. So obviously he was bought under the Steidten era, and whether others don't judge. But actually, no, it would have been under the Steidten era. I believe it would have been by the academy he was brought in. I'm not too sure, to be fair. I mean, he was signed and Kenny Brown was there in the fixture, so I imagine it would be more of an academy buy than the first team buy. Whether he's, for me, he needs to get league football, whether that's brought or some football, regular football, whether he's brought back into the 21s for next season, possibly. If you're looking at someone like maybe Luizao for getting more game time with the first team, possibly. Well, I still think Lewis needs to go out on loan, do a Freddie Potts next year, personally. But for me, Kante needs some minutes because we need to see him. Whether that is loan in England, whether it will benefit him to stay in France, that's obviously the job of the academy. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. But he won't be featured in the first team next year, that's for sure, because he's only played half a dozen games for the 20 for Liga side this season. So I think he needs to go into the loan systems, whether that is in the UK or whether that is in France, which could benefit him potentially. Regan, part of he's gone out on loan to Dagenham. Obviously, he had a massive injury last season, came back on loan at Dagenham Redbridge, who look like they're going down. Although they just got new owners, YouTube or major shareholders, as announced yesterday. Very strange. Regan again, he comes to a point where a player has to. We've interviewed loads, Lee Hodges, Izzy Kipen, Adam Newton, people like that, and it comes to a point where they need to decide what they want to do, whether they're happy to sort of bounce between what was the reserves for the 21s and the first team squads, or whether they want out and go get decent football. He's played well at Daggers, according to reports. He's had good minutes. So now, again, I think also for a lot of these players, once they get the taste for league football, they want it. And I remember that's what Lee must definitely remember Lee saying. Once he got a taste of being in the first team, he wanted to always be in the first team. He didn't want to be sort of downgraded back to the stiffs. And I think that's going to happen with Regan as well. Whether that goes out unknown again, whether someone like Dagenham Redbridge come in for him, but then Dagenham Redbridge won't necessarily. They would be relegated. By the sounds of it, they could be relegated out of the National League. So again, would a lower league side take a punt on him? Quite possibly. Is it worth going out on loan again next season, almost as like a trial, possibly as well? We'll have to wait and see. Brad, I mean, he's just gone out on loan. I mean, he'll come back and sit within the 21s. I don't think he's actually played any or very few minutes for Aldershot since going out on loan. I think it was more of an emergency loan type situation for him, but he'll come back. Obviously, we've got Josh Landers who's scoring for the 18s for fun. He'll come back into, I'll see him a lot of games for him in the 21s next year. Josh Ajala. People say, what about Daniel Cummings? I think Daniel Cummings, if he comes in, will be going into the first team pathway. That's what's kind of been promised to him by the sounds of it, in terms of taking that sort of Danny Ings role. And ironically, Danny Ings could end up going to Celtic, so in a weird sort of twist of fate. But Brad, natural goal scorer. Obviously, we got him on from sort of non-league, so to speak. And I think I wouldn't be surprised to see him go out unknown again, possibly, because the loan spell didn't really work. Didn't really do anything. Same as Junior, really. Junior was on a low spell. I think he's not, unless I think league side coming for him, I think he'll stay around the 21s because he'll potentially be someone who could step up into the pathway. I think he's a very good player. I think he's got a level of intensity which I really like. Reminds me of a young Kyle Walker. And particularly if you think in the summer, someone like Sufal goes, and his contract's not renewed. Yes, we're looking at bringing Kyle Walker-Peters, and he can obviously potentially cover both left and right. But someone like Junior could easily come in and understudy Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and I think he would be a good mentor to Aaron as well. Or Aaron be a good mentor to Junior as well. During the international break, when we had the Brentford game, he did play some minutes for the first team in that behind closed friendly, which we couldn't even beat a battered Brentford. So the club, have him on their list, so to speak, by all accounts. And then we've got a couple of goalkeepers. Mason Terry on loan at AFC Hornchurch on a similar deal to how sort of Junior is at Sutton in terms of trains with the under 21s. Will be on the bench usually on a Friday and end up playing on the Saturday for AFC. Goalkeeper wise, we've got some good goalkeepers. So if, for example, Fabianski isn't given a new deal, Wes Frodgingham will still be around from a experience perspective. But we've got Finn Herrick, who the club he signed a new long-term deal, and you can see, I think, who the club who are pinning their hopes up because they'd be giving long-term deals to him. They've given long-term deals, obviously, Freddie Potts, Lewis Orford, and Ollie Scars as well, who's really a first-team player now. He's not part of the academy anymore now. So you can see, and Finn's got a new term deal as well. Someone like Callum, for example, his contract runs out in 2 years' time. So we should see if they offer him a new deal. I think they'll probably see how his progression happens in the next couple of years and see whether it's worth tying him down to a longer term deal. They haven't as such where they have for all the others, which to me shows how they view certain players personally. Mason's a very good goalkeeper, and again, there's we've got 3 or 4 really good goalkeepers. We've got him, we've got Finn, Christian Heggie, who's still injured following international duty with the full Hungarian side, pulled out that training camp because of injury. Currently loaned at Debrecen, his native Hungary. I think the club are positioning him as a number 2 next year. He went to Motherwell last year, or the beginning of this season rather, to pretty much go as their number 2 for Motherwell. He was constantly on the bench in the SPL. So it's a role it's a certain type of role being a number 2, and I think that's what they were doing. I think they were almost like, he's going to Motherwell, he's not going to be first team goalkeeper. They've got a first team goalkeeper, but he's going in to be a number 2. So he's experienced enough he'll be experienced to stand the bench and things like that, because that's what you do quite a lot, being a number 2. And I think they do have hopes on him. And I think going to Debrecen was just to get some games, get some reps, because he hasn't played much at all for Motherwell. And then you've got, as I said, you've got Finn underneath him. You've got Mason. You've got Finley under them. You've got Longry as well, the England under-18 goalkeeper. So goalkeepers is, but it takes time with goalkeepers, and very rarely do English Premier League sides entrust in a young goalkeeper. Unlike, I think Anton made a good point. I think it's like Italy and France, Donnarumma and people like that. They were given sort of first team bursts quite early on in their careers. It seems we don't tend to put youngsters in goal in the Premier League, so that's why we have to utilise the low system. But anyway, that's me lot. That's me lot. Oh, take Cam off, bless him. That's me lot. Let me know in the comments what you think. Bit of a longer one, bit of a longer winded one today, but I thought it was really important because we're making decisions on lots of players in the first team. As I said, 10 immediately, really, in terms of the 5 out of contract, the 2 who we've got in loan, and the 3 out on loan from our side. And there's a lot. You can see we spent the last 25 minutes going through a lot of the players who decisions need to be made as well, because it's not only for West Ham but for their personal development, their careers as well. When we interviewed Tony Carr, he said, number one, the role of the academy is to make West Ham players to play for West Ham first team. The second one is to make good football players, and for a number of those players, it will be the second. Just because your academy doesn't give you a God-given right to go into the first team, some players might not make the cut, and I think there's a few there who might not make the cut. So they're not good players, but you've just got to be that extra bit to break into a Premier League side, in my opinion. And we've got, as I said, someone like Ollie Scars, he had to be that extra to get in there. Lewis Orford, he's had minutes this year. You had Kane's had minutes this year. Underneath, you've got people like Josh Ajala who could potentially get minutes next year. Freddie Potts will be getting minutes next year. And then you sort of looking at the peripherals, and coming through after that, you've got Preston Fearon, who to me is going to be. He's got all the tools in his toolbox to be a world-class midfielder. I think he's got just stuff you can't teach. The vision of that boy is incredible. Edric Golombekis as well. I talk about him quite a lot. I think he is a modern day, could be a modern day great in terms of a centre back. Ezra Mayers as well, very quick, very solid centre half. And so you've got this sort of, and then underneath that you've got people like Josh Landers, and Amike Adieli. You've got some really good players. Reino Ibeda. Anyway, if you like what we do in terms of the academy, don't forget the Academy Show every Monday at 6 o'clock UK time. The only channel to dedicate just a section just for the academy. But anyway, take care, stay safe, stay warm, stay humble, keep the faith. I think Holly will be along later on, hopefully, and I'll see you soon. Much love. Bye, bye.